guys, this is the less British half of the Sapphic podcast coming at you with a slight trigger warning for this episode. We do talk about homophobia and biphobia within the episode, and there is a slight mention of self-harm. So if you're not in the headspace to listen to that or don't think that that's something you can handle, feel free to skip over this. But if you decide to listen in, just be aware that those are discussed. Welcome back to the Sapphic podcast. I am your host, Nisa, and with me, as always, is the absolute wonderful, amazing, super duper Ellie.
What do you want? What have you done wrong that you now need to butter me up for?
You know, I had offered you to do the intro and you told me it was on me, so I just wanted to embarrass you a little bit.
Wow. I also feel like just before this episode, we recorded another episode where we butt heads on a book. So maybe you're trying to, make that up to me.
No, I never have regrets on things I say on this podcast.
No, you're like, I stand by my opinion, even though it's wrong.
Hey, my opinions are hardly ever wrong.
I'm not sure what order we are releasing these episodes in, but listen out for the fake marriage, fake dating episode. That's where we disagreed on a book.
I'm going to say 73% of the time I am correct.
I feel like you probably have a spreadsheet to back that up.
Shots fired. I don't, but I could make one.
Yeah, you tally every time you're right in a situation, and you make an average.
Dude, that would be petty as fudge.
I would do that. I really would.
You would not.
But in my younger years, younger Ellie definitely would have.
I mean, younger Ellie probably also had more time on her hands.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like we do a lot of things when we're young that we probably wouldn't as adults, and it mostly comes down to that time aspect.
Yeah, I thought that perfectly leads us into what we're talking about today, which is...
Coming out! Woohoo! It's an exciting episode.
Yeah, coming out / gay awakenings.
Who was your gay awakening, by the way? I think I already know.
Yeah, as I say, we've discussed this multiple times. I'm sure I have sent you pictures of her. Gillian Anderson.
Hold on, let's see. I guess... That Gillian Anderson?
Oh, for those of you listening and not watching, Nisa has just shown me a picture of herself, her partner, and Gillian Anderson, and I'm extremely jealous.
Yeah, I got to pay for the privilege to meet Gillian Anderson.
But you have a memory that's oh, I would love to meet Gillian.
I feel like Gillian Anderson is a lot of Sapphic folks' gay awakening.
I feel like I knew I was not straight from a young age. I want to say maybe 6 or 7. I knew. But I started watching the X-Files when I was maybe 13. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely not straight.
See, I didn't really even know that that was an option for a while. I just knew that when I went into my preschool, I loved getting hugs from my teacher, and I liked taking naps there because it meant I had more time with her.
Literally me with ballet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my ballet teacher. I actually ended up quitting because I was infatuated with my ballet teacher.
Goodness gracious.
And I was 6. So all of those ignorant people out there that are you're not born gay, tell that to 6-year-old Ellie.
Yeah, I definitely, man, I feel like this is going to make me seem really, really old, but my gay awakening, I feel like, is much different than a lot of other people's. So I had 2 kind of when I was much, much younger. So Leah Thompson, specifically in Howard the Duck, with that punk rock star hairdo she had. And then Elizabeth Shue in The Karate Kid as Allie.
I don't know who that is. I know Leah Thompson.
Really? Have you seen Adventures in Babysitting?
I will Google her.
Specifically Google her as Allie from Karate Kid.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, she's stunning.
I know, right? Exactly. Very much girl next door kind of vibe there.
Speaking of Miss Honey from Matilda.
Yes. Very much, yes.
All about Miss Honey.
Agreed.
Which is why I'm surprised that, as an adult, I'm so into Ice Queens. Because I grew up on, the Miss Honeys of the world.
Yeah. See, I think I definitely have a type, because I definitely like the girl next door kind of thing, which, since we are talking about... Oh, wait. Do I want to talk about that? That kind of outs her, though.
You don't have to name any names.
I'm sure nobody is going to watch who might happen to know her, but my first girlfriend actually did happen to be the girl next door. Quite literally. I could look out my bedroom window into her bedroom window.
That is the stuff of Sapphic dreams.
Isn't it just?
Wow. But, your beautiful wife very much looks like the girl next door.
She does. She does indeed. I have a type, and that is the type. At least I'm consistent.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Gillian Anderson, but then I ended up marrying a transgender Finnish woman, so my type just out the window. See, that's what made me have that identity crisis the other day. Do you remember I messaged you after reading Destination U? And I was like, Nisa, I don't know if I'm bisexual. I think I might be pansexual.
That makes sense.
I went on a deep dive about the differences, and I'm probably still bisexual. It was a whole identity crisis that happened on a Wednesday evening.
You know, I didn't realize it was such an identity crisis, and here I was making the joke. Does that mean you're attracted to pans?
You were ripping into me for it. Alex is there like waving the little pansexual flag like, it's okay. And you're there sending me pan jokes.
Hey, but if your friend can't make jokes about pans when you're talking about pansexuality, are you even friends?
Exactly. I was not offended in the slightest, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm still bi, but then I don't know. I'm Alex sexual at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like once you get into that long-term relationship, that ends up just being what it is. Like, I'm heterosexual, which actually sounds a lot like heterosexual, so don't get those two confused.
Imagine like a straight person hosting a Sapphic podcast. There would be uproar.
If you listen to, you know, American politicians these days, white men do everything better. White, straight, cisgender men are more equipped to do all that. So maybe a straight person would be better at hosting a Sapphic podcast. Who knows?
Imagine if that happened and then you were actually like, by the way, guys, I'm actually married to a man.
I shudder at the thought.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me die the other day when I was sending you gifs of hairy men.
Yeah, I wanted to die. I was thinking about just like jabbing the eyes out, you know, like.
Can't remember why we were talking about hairy men, but yeah. The things we discuss in WhatsApp.
No, I do remember. I had read that book where she was dating a man for a good portion of it. That's why I hated it. That's right. Not on the agenda. Second book of the Billionaire series. She was like, she had a Friends with Benefits that was a dude. And I was like so far into that book, and they kept talking about his hairy chest. And I had learned more about her sex life with him than I had about her and the female love interest. And I was like, I do not want to read this in my Sapphic book. I don't need to know about hairy chests or like how big his member is or any of that. Just stop. Just
is that the one
stop.
that you told me you felt queer baited?
No, that was Survivors by Amy Marston. I was like 240 pages in, and the most gay thing that had happened was that she was having a gay panic about a soldier that she was like looking across the way, and she was like, do I like her? Do I not like her? I'm kind of attracted to her. Would I let her kiss me? And I'm like, why are we gay panicking on page 240 when you've added 3 tags about this book about, I think it was LGBTQIA+, lesbian, it might have been bisexual as well. And I'm like, this is queer baiting at its finest.
Not to defend her, because that does sound very queerbaity, but are you talking about on Goodreads, the tags? So I learned this the other day when I was uploading my book. Tags are auto-generated based on your audience and what they click on. It's not something the authors have any control over.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, maybe so I was a little less...
I think it's kind of based on what lists the book get added to and the general consensus, like if I was to shelve that book as LGBT, that kind of thing. That's how the tags are generated.
I can't imagine many people tagging it or shelving it as an LGBTQ book, though, since there is minimal... Like, I actually caught more lesbian vibes from one of the other soldiers that character had met, but then towards the end of the book, it seemed like she was going to hook up with one of the male soldiers, and I was like, well, that's disappointing.
Damn bisexuals.
They're the worst, honestly. I'm kidding. I am kidding. I do want to preface that by saying I'm joking.
If you ever hear Lisa ripping on bisexuals, just know she's ripping on me and not bisexuals.
Exactly. Some of my best friends are bisexual. That's what people say, right?
Yeah, I can't be homophobic. My best friend's bisexual.
Exactly.
If you ever hear Nisa ripping on bisexuals, it's in fact to poke fun at me, not bisexuals in general.
Exactly. Ellie specific. So, veering back to coming out. So, you say you are bisexual. I guess, do you have a coming out story, or where did you come into that? Because I feel like, and we talked a little bit about it with the comp het, episode where like the default is seen as straight. So obviously there had to be that point where you're like, hey, not straight.
Yes, I spoke about it in my Friends to Lovers episode that we did, and I think I knew that I wasn't straight from a young age, like I said earlier, but the first time I wanted to actually act on it was I fell head over heels for my best friend at uni, who was a woman, and I was still very much in the closet at the age of 19, and I hadn't told a soul. And then one night, one of my really good male friends, Sam, was trying to make eyes at a girl and was like, oh, it's so hard to go and chat a girl up. And I was like, it's not, it's so easy. And Sam was like, well, if you're interested, you should go do it. And I was like, fine, I will. That was the first time I think I ever openly admitted that I was interested in people other than men. And my friends were kind of like, wait, would you actually go and talk to her? And I was like, yeah, I'm bi. Like, it's not a big deal. Trying to play it cool. And then I called my mum the next day and I was like feeling awful because me and my mum are really close, and I felt awful that I'd come out to my friends before my mum. And I was like, listen, I know I'm seeing you this weekend, but I need to talk to you about something and I need you to hold me accountable and not let me wuss out. And she like panicked thinking it was something terrible and that I was sick or something. So I told her and she was like, thank God, is that it? I was like, yeah.
She's like, I thought you were dying.
That's what she said. She was like, Ellie, the fact that you're bi is like not even an issue. She was like, I'm relieved that you're not sick. Like, you date whoever you want to date. The only negative reaction I ever had was with a family member who just didn't understand bisexuality, and it caused some friction in my family for a while. But yeah, we've moved past it. But for a long time, I kind of, resented that kind of negative reaction. Something that I was like quite openly proud about. But I don't think that's a unique case. I feel like most people have some kind of adverse reaction from someone at some point.
I'd say that's very probable. I mean, you already kind of know mine, so you know mine didn't go very well. I had probably a real hard time with it just because I grew up in one of those households where it was like, if my kid is gay, I'm gonna disown them. And that was like beat into us every day. Joke's on my parents because they have not one but two gay children. Ha! Serves you right. But yeah, so like I didn't even want to come out to myself. Like it took me a really long time to come out to myself even, despite the fact that I very much knew. But being more masculine, it kind of sucked too because like I had people talking about being a lesbian or being a dyke before I was even like acknowledging that I was a lesbian. And so it was one of those where I'm like, I haven't even told myself this and you're telling me. So yeah, that really sucked. But I think my parents were like some of the last ones to know in my life.
Did you tell them or did they find out?
Okay, so we already know I dated like the girl next door, and so I was super obvious about my affection towards her. We were not subtle at all, and so I think my parents knew, and my mom actually took to snooping in my room trying to find evidence that we were dating.
What was she hoping to find?
I have no idea, honestly. She ended up finding, like, in one of my darker periods of time, I was thinking about self-harming. And so she had found a note that I had written. And, you know, when I found out that she had found this, I was panicking because I thought, oh, well, they're going to talk to me about, you know, the fact that I was thinking about self-harming and I'm probably going to have to go and get on medication and go to therapy and stuff. But that wasn't even their biggest concern. They kind of breezed over that and kind of were just focused in on the fact that I was dating the neighbor. And they were trying to make it so that whenever she spent the night, like they were trying to cut down on her spending the night. They were trying to make it so that we left the door open and stuff. And I'm like, I feel like, especially now that I'm a parent, I feel like you're focusing on the wrong part of what you just found out. So I really don't know what she was hoping to find. And it was so awkward because like I would be on the phone with my ex, at the time girlfriend, and my mom at one point got on the phone and was like, don't make me regret you moving in across the street. You need to leave Nisa alone. And I'm like, okay, first off, that's insane because why are you talking like this to a teenager, truly, as an adult? But yeah, so I didn't actually officially come out to them until I graduated from college, though. And it was because I was afraid that they wouldn't, because I was fortunate enough that they were paying for my college completely. And so I didn't want to take the risk that they would stop paying for it. So I waited until I had a job offer and I knew that I was going to be fine on my own. But I remember I had I was kind of out to my friends, and I feel like, again, that goes back to, I mean, look at me, it's kind of hard to say I'm not a lesbian when you talk about lesbian stereotypes. So I think a lot of my friends kind of assumed, whether right, wrong, or indifferent. I came out to my brother first, and I remember I came out to him. I told him, oh yeah, I'm a lesbian. And I remember he laughed. He went, good luck telling mom and dad. And I was like, thanks for the support, little bro. Fuck, like savage. But yeah, when I finally did come out to my parents, I actually wussed out. I wrote a letter to my dad and sent it to him first because I thought he would take it better than my mom, which was accurate because when it actually did, like when I confirmed it, she didn't talk to me for 6 months and was very, why are you doing this to me? Which, okay, I'm sorry, question mark. So yeah.
I mean, I know I said this to you, but I'm sorry that you had to deal with that.
I mean, them's the breaks. I'm no contact with my parents now, so I gave that a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose the only benefit is you now know, and hopefully your kids now know, that you and your wife will never ever have that reaction if they ever came out.
Oh no, I'm gonna be heartbroken if my child comes out as straight.
We do not raise straight children in this house.
What did I do wrong?
You were not born that way.
Oh my god. We raised you better than that. It is Adam and Steve, not Adam and Eve. Damn it.
You know, we are 33 minutes in and have not mentioned a book yet.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault getting off topic.
So books about coming out.
After that very long tangent, yes. Nisa, what are the books you think do the best coming out stories?
So I honestly don't read a lot of young adult because I'm not a young adult. So I feel like I don't encounter coming out in the standard way as much as I could if I read young adult, but there were a few that I found not necessarily to be like great depictions, but I think they kind of resonated with me just because of how kind of different they were. So one of them was Beyond the Blue by T.J. O'Shea, which featured May and Morgan. So May is a little bit older, talking about older Sapphics in literature, and she is a widower who had been married to a man for the majority of her life, and she meets Morgan, a police officer, and she starts having feelings for Morgan. And so I think what was interesting about that to me was the late in life coming out, and then the fact that when she came out, she wasn't coming out to like parents or friends necessarily. She was coming out to her daughters, her 2 adult daughters, and seeing like her daughters not respond the best to that because they were like, well, you were married to our dad for so long, you can't possibly be bisexual or gay. I thought that was a really interesting way to portray coming out, and I feel like it's something that we don't see as much in Sapphic literature, because I feel like when you think about coming out, you think about being a bit younger and coming out to like your friends, your parents, but there are a lot of women who come out later in life, and so kind of dealing with coming out to your kids, I think, is something that I'd like to see a lot more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it is something that's true to life and that some women have to kind of deal with. But yeah, that was one of them. The other one I brought up, and it is kind of, I think the reason I liked it was because it shows both sides of the spectrum, is Girls Who Pray by Evelyn Darr, because it does show both sides of the spectrum. So on one side of the spectrum, you have Rachel's parent, well, dad, who when she comes out to him, he basically says that he just wants her to be happy. He doesn't condone it necessarily, but you can tell he has her back and he supports her. And you find out later how much he does support her as the book goes on. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have Sarah's dad, who is the pastor, who's fire and brimstone. And when she comes out, he like explodes in such a horrific way. And is ready to disown her, basically, unless she puts all of that aside. And so I thought it was really cool to see the juxtaposition between the way those 2 patriarchs in this family really handled their daughters coming out. It does really a great job of showing both sides of the spectrum. So if you're looking for that in a book, that was really good. And then the other one was Here for the Wrong Reasons, which I talk about all the time. The character I don't recall her name, but it was almost like a coming out to herself more than coming out to her parents and her friend, because her parents and her friend knew. They were just waiting for her to come out to them. They were very accepting. They were ready. They were even trying to encourage her to come to terms with her own sexuality. And it was more a journey to acknowledge it for yourself. And so those are like the three main examples that I really appreciated, just because I think you get a really good idea of the whole spectrum of coming out from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed Girls Who Pray, and I really, really enjoyed Beyond the Blue. I think Beyond the Blue was actually one of my first 5-star reads.
Yeah, I think I read it because you had recommended it to me.
I mean, T.J. O'Shea, again, is just an amazing author, and I will always read whatever she writes.
I believe she also wrote To Be With You, which is also one of my personal favorites, despite the fact that I did have to look her up because I thought that it was so eerily similar to things that had happened with my ex that my ex was writing like a tell-all.
I remember you sending me that message and you were like, is this author my ex? And then we like did a deep dive into who she was. And we were like, no, she's in fact not your ex.
No, but boy, was that eerily similar.
Yeah, no, I love TJ. She actually has another book coming out soon.
Oh, does she? That's awesome. Do we know what this one's about?
No, I can picture the cover. I actually had to report one of the reviews on it because there is a Goodreads account that will go and give 1-star reviews to Sapphic books that have not been released yet.
Oh, that's shitty.
Yeah, he did it with T.J. O'Shea, Haley Cass, and he did it on another book. And he's giving 1 stars before they're even out. And I'm like, clearly you are just a homophobic bot. And he has something like 17,000 1-star reviews that he's given.
Ooh, that's shit. What about you? What did you have for coming out? I know you had some examples of ones that you didn't love.
God, yes, I did. Some of the ones I liked. Okay, so on my list, I had, similar to Beyond the Blue, I had Honey in the Marrow by Emily Waters, which is a later in life coming out story. I can't remember exactly, but I want to say the women are late 50s, early 60s.
That's different.
One of the characters was married to a cop and he died. And the person she falls for, the other woman, was a colleague of her ex-husband. And it's very much like they've been colleagues, these two women, for the longest time. And they were never friends, but after the death of her husband, she really reached out and was like, listen, I care about you. I really want to be there for you. And the book was like staged over a long period, and they just had a really sweet falling for each other moment. And she had to come out to her kids at the age of, again, late 50s, early 60s. And thankfully, like, her kids were super cool about it, but it was just a really sweet, like, moment to see her being like, I don't know if I'm ready to tell my kids, I really, I want to be with you, will you, like, kind of hold my hand and do this with me? And it was a really mature take. Yeah, you'd really enjoy it. It was a really mature take on almost like a later in life coming out story. I think you'd really enjoy it. The POV kind of messed with my head a bit. It was written in a way that I've never actually seen a book being written. And it was kind of like first person POV, but she was almost like recounting her story to you as opposed to, I can't describe it, but the POV took me a good chapter or two to get used to.
Interesting.
It was a different writing style than I'm used to, but I really enjoyed the book. Another one that did well for me was Loser of the Year by Carrie Bird.
I've heard a lot of good things about that. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's basically a Jewish teacher and previously famous football star who is now a gym coach, and they both are teachers at the same school. And there's kind of a twist midway where you find out that they actually had met previously, but one of them didn't remember. So the Jewish teacher is out and proud, but she works at a very conservative school where you're not allowed to be out. And so she has to stay in the closet at work. And the gym coach is not out, period. Her family, she's really close with them, but I think they are Catholic, and the gym teacher attends, her name's Gillian. Gillian attends mass every Sunday and is kind of like, I'm a Catholic, this is my faith, I'm a believer in God and my family are Catholic, and I work at a Catholic school, so I can't come out. And the book is essentially Gillian, who is an ice queen, coming to terms with that part of her identity. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it because it wasn't necessarily, I think there tends to be a tendency with coming out stories of, fuck, like I can't come out because I'm going to be disowned and all this kind of thing, which is a very real fear. But the way Loser of the Year did it was very much, I don't want to disappoint my family. I know they would love me regardless, but I don't want to disappoint them. And it was that kind of twist on the, I don't want to come out because of my family trope.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting way to portray that.
Yeah, because obviously she's Catholic, her family Catholic, she works at Catholic school, and so all of the odds essentially are like stacked against her in coming out. And she's like, look, I'm really close with my dad and my brother in particular, and I know they would love me regardless, but I don't want to alter my relationship with them, and I don't want them to see me differently.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was handled really maturely, and it had an interesting twist midway about, again, how they knew each other previously. But yeah, I'd recommend that. My other one that I would recommend was The Doors We Open by Donna J. And so
I've never even heard of that one.
yeah, I've tagged this as orange on my green, amber, red list. In terms of book, I would recommend. And it's orange because the coming out element was good, and perhaps the story for me wasn't the best overall. Essentially, it's about a woman in her, I think, mid-40s, has just divorced from her children's father. And she's bisexual, but she's never experienced or never looked into exploring her lesbian side of her bisexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so she goes to a brothel to see a lesbian dominatrix, to have sex for the first time, and yeah, she ends up like developing feelings, and then finds out that she actually knows the dominatrix because it's her daughter's soccer coach.
Nope.
Anyway, the reason I said it was like Amber was because the book had elements that were problematic.
You don't say.
But the coming out element that we are discussing in this episode was handled quite well. She wasn't kind of skirting around coming out. She's like, fuck, I've got feelings for this woman. I know I need to come out, so I'm just going to do it. And she comes out to her daughter and her son. And the daughter is, I think, like late teens. And the daughter is kind of like, I'm gay too. And they come out together, which is like really cool. And her daughter's really supportive and is like, the reason I tagged it as a good coming out story was because her daughter is like, Mum, I love you regardless. And I'm finding my footing coming out as a lesbian. You're finding your footing coming out as bisexual. We'll go on this journey together.
That's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It did have issues where like her son wasn't accepting of it because her son was closer to his father.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like animosity between the woman and the dad. And the son took the father's side and was kind of like, you know, I don't want to hear about you sleeping with other women kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had elements that made it a good coming out story and elements that made it not so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, if you want like a sweet mother-daughter coming out interaction, I'd recommend that story. And then...
But you'd have to also deal with dominatrices.
Dominatrices. I will say the dominatrix was lovely. And I kind of get that if you are not ready to jump into a serious relationship with a woman, maybe she saw that as like her only alternative.
I think that's a trope unto itself, hiring a sex worker to help you dip your toes into the bisexual or lesbian arena.
Yeah, and it obviously comes with problematic areas. But I will say that this handled the dominatrix trope well in the sense that they sat down first and discussed what you're looking for out of this encounter, what are your limits, what can we do, what can we not do. And I think it was... Some books are just problematic when it comes to BDSM and dominatrix dynamics, but this handled that quite well, I think. And then that brings me to the one that did not work well. The one that did not work well for me in terms of coming out was Just Kiss Her by Claire Lydon.
I have not read that one.
Don't read it. Yeah, I'm never normally blunt with my opinions on this podcast because I don't want to offend anyone if it's their favourite book, but that book made me cry, genuinely. Sad tears. So essentially we have two characters. It's an age gap dating trope.
I do have to say, I find that shocking just because I know how much you love an age gap romance.
Yes, I typically love age gap romances, which is why I was like excited to read this one. But anyway, we have Brooke, who is the younger woman in this story, and her best friend is a man called Noah, and Noah's mum is Jen. And so the main story focuses on Brooke and Jen falling for one another, and they end up dating. And that's fine, that's not my issue with this book. My issue is Noah. And so Noah hasn't come out to his family yet. His father is getting remarried, and his mum and dad are still close. They're like friends, despite being divorced. And so they all go away to this exotic location, and they're all invited, including the mum, which is where the mum meets Brooke. And Noah is like, Brooke, I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend because I'm not ready to come out yet. And Brooke's like, yeah, cool. And then he says, I'm gonna start by coming out as bisexual because it's safer. And I was just like, it was a soccer punch moment. I honestly, like, I was so upset when I read that. And he basically this whole book carries the same theme, and it's not mentioned once. Once in a passing comment, it would annoy me, but I could forgive it. But it was a reoccurring thing that was stated, I'm coming out as bisexual because I'm not ready to come out as gay. And it was treated, being bi, as a stepping stone. And the way it was phrased was, being bi isn't really real. You only come out as bi because you're not ready to come out as gay yet.
Ooh.
And I was on holiday, it was my by the pool read, and I started like crying. And Alex is like, are you okay? And I'm like, really upset that in today's society, where I thought we were more progressive, this entire book has just ripped into bisexuals and marginalised us to just being essentially a stepping stone. And I was just like, what kind of message does that send to... Because Claire Lydon has a big fan base. She's not an unknown author. And I just think if you have baby gays that are reading this, if you have, in particular, baby bisexuals, not only are you saying, if you are fully a lesbian or a gay person, not only are you telling them that it's okay to come out as bi as a stepping stone, because it's safer, but you're also telling bisexuals that essentially their identity doesn't exist.
Yeah, I feel like also in that is when people talk about bisexuality from like a homophobic standpoint, they always say, well, bisexuality isn't real, it's just you're being curious and we all know you'll go back to being straight. And so I feel like it's the biphobic like flip of the coin, the other side of that argument. And it's really disheartening to see coming from like the LGBTQIA community that they would say something so biphobic.
Yeah, I've just found the quote he says. He says he's going to come out as bi because it's, quote, good enough, end quote, for now. And he wants to test his parents' reactions before rocking the boat.
Okay, but the thing is, and I'm just going to throw this one out there since my parents were ridiculously shitty about me coming out, I don't think if I would have come out as bi, it would have been any better because it would have still been acknowledging that you do have, like, homosexual tendencies. I don't think it's any safer coming out as bi when your parents aren't accepting of that. And so I think it's also kind of misleading to baby gays just because, like you said, is it might actually make them think it's safer, and it is not safer depending on who your parents are or who your friends are or where you're at.
Yeah, no, and I just think it was handled so poorly to have a main character essentially say, tend to be my girlfriend so that I can test my parents' reactions before I come out as gay, because I'm going to tell them I'm bi so that way I can essentially renege on saying that. If their reactions are poor, if they say, oh shit, we don't want you to date a man, he can essentially say, oh, it's fine, I'll just date women then. I like both, it's fine. That's how it was prefaced, is that he's going to essentially take that back if his parents don't like the fact that he's gay.
That's so invalidating. That's really disappointing to see.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I perhaps took that to heart more than other readers, because it has, I mean, what is it rating at the moment? 4.16 out of 1,500 reviews. So clearly a lot of people liked it, but I think looking at it from a bi-person perspective, it really upset me.
Yeah, and I mean, even me just hearing that, it's upsetting because it's like the worst of biphobia.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a benign statement to make, but it is such a damaging statement to make that.
Yeah, and I know that, like, there is that stereotype of bisexual people are greedy, bisexual people, you know, can't make their mind up, whatever. And personally, I mean, this is just my experience, but I always felt like I never belonged in a camp. I never belonged with lesbians. I never belonged with straight people. And I mean, thankfully, having, you know, written the book I've written and joining Sapphic Book Top, I have found a really lovely community of Sapphic people there. But for the longest time, it was very much like, you know, bisexuality isn't real. That's how I felt growing up.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I still had so many of my actual friends, real life friends that I, you know, care about deeply. When I got engaged to Alexandra, asked me if I was still bi, and they were like, oh, so are you a lesbian, like, fully now? And it's just like, no, please don't invalidate part of my identity because you just don't understand it. And it'd be different if they would have asked, but it was more the assumption they made.
Yeah.
I'm just sensitive around biphobia because I feel like it's still so prevalent. And this just goes to show, I mean, this book was released not even that long ago. This book was released in 2024, last year.
Wow. Disappointing to think that in 2024, we still have such an issue within our own community regarding bisexuals. Because this isn't the first time that I've heard some of the sentiments that you said were put out in the book, where it's like, oh, it's just a stepping stone and it's the more acceptable and it's, uh,
And don't wrong, like, I'm all for bi-awakening stories. Like, I've read so many books where you have a supposedly straight woman who meets another woman and is like, oh, actually, I think I might be bi because I'm attracted to this woman. And I'm, like, all for those stories because they are handled maturely and with sensitivity. But Just Kiss Her, I've never been quite so affected by a book. So yeah, I would say if you're bisexual, don't read that book because it will upset you. And if you are a baby gay and you are bisexual, know that it's okay to, be proudly bisexual and love proudly as a bisexual.
Yeah. And just because you're getting married to one or the other does not mean that you are no longer bisexual.
Yeah, I don't understand why in this day and age it's so hard to understand. I don't know, it just that book just reeked of biphobia.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't like it.
And I don't want, you and I joke a lot about my bisexuality. I can take a joke. You refer to me being bi a lot, and it's funny. I'm not sensitive about it, but I feel like as an author in a position where you have a big fan base, you do have to be mindful of the things you put out into the world. And your words matter, and they matter to communities as well as individuals. And when you give that message that being bisexual is good enough for now so you don't rock the boat, it's just, it's disheartening and it's upsetting.
Now I feel bad that I'm reading a Claire Lydon book.
No, you shouldn't. And this is what I mean. I never ever want anyone listening to our podcast to think that we are attacking any authors or any books in particular. We're not. This is all opinion based. This book just wasn't for me and that author just isn't for me.
Fair enough. I mean, and I like you said, invariably will always be people who, books don't hit quite right for.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You do you. You read the book if you want to read it.
Dude, you did it again. Why do we keep doing this? We always, get towards the end of the episode on a down note, and then we have to try and find a way to make it not super depressing.
My book comes out next week, and the week after I'm getting married.
Hey! Getting married!
Hey. Yeah.
So now you're a lesbian, right?
Fuck you.
That's how that works.
Wow. You're so funny.
I know I am. And I'm super humble about it, too. Okay, so that is our episode on coming out and gay awakenings. If you liked us, let us know. Feel free to subscribe wherever you're at or follow us on our Instagram or TikToks at the Sapphic Gays Podcast. We also have the YouTube, the Spotify, all those good things. And if you want to let us know what your favorite coming out stories are, or even just your coming out story, feel free to let us know in the comments. And hope you guys have a great day, month, week, year, life, whatever. So, bye guys.